You're listening to the Womanpreneur podcast. Empowerment in business and life.
Welcome to the Womanpreneur podcast. I'm Amanda McCune. This is Melissa Moats.
Yes, I am. And we have a very special guest with us today. I am super excited to introduce Captain Sasha Larkin. And you are the captain of the Las Vegas Metro Police Department Northwest Division, Summerlin.
You are like 99.7% perfect.
What did I
She's
say
one
wrong?
of 27
Yeah,
captains.
because
One
it
of
makes me sound
27.
super important if you
But
say
you are.
the captain.
But you are.
I'm just one of 27, but I am the captain of
Well,
Northwest Area Command.
You know what? To me, you're the captain. That's where I'm at.
You know what? Just for today, I'll take it.
All right?
It's totally all right.
On the Womanpreneur podcast, you are the captain.
Yes.
Right here.
Also, because I don't think
you.
you want to argue with her because, you know,
No.
I'm working
power.
on receiving, so I'm just going to receive.
I love that. That's a good one. We'll have to talk about that today
Yes.
too. It's hard to receive.
It is hard.
And having a captain on our show today, I like to say that, captain. Like,
Yeah.
it makes me feel better about our show.
You guys
just
are
that
making
you're
me
here.
feel better and better about that word. It never really
Oh,
occurred to me to be that cool.
It
Yeah,
is-
it's super cool.
It's cool. It's very cool, Captain.
Because at home, I'm just mom.
Oh.
You're pretty. So I want to talk about this. So you have twin girls, is that right?
I do.
And a son,
2 sons.
2 sons.
One of which I birthed and the other I got to help raise.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
And you are a yogi extraordinaire.
Oh, see, there's the word. Yogi, yes. Yogini, technically.
Yes.
And extraordinaire might be one step above my credentials, but
Just receive it.
okay. This is me receiving.
Wow.
Palms up.
Melissa's not scared to put you in your place today.
No,
I'm kind of taking it, right?
I love
It's good.
Sasha. You are a huge inspiration to me. And I want to say a little, the way that we met was through, we attended a class together
The great.
with the great.
The great. That deserves
powerful
the...
and
That
mighty.
deserves a header.
Right. So we studied together.
Yes.
We've learned from the Zen
The Zen speaker, the great,
The great-
wise, wonderful,
Amy
unrelenting Amy.
Ayub. Should we say it in stereo?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Amy
Ayub. She is.
I haven't taken this class, so I don't feel like I can
Oh
join
my
it.
goodness, you have to.
You will.
That's what I've heard.
You have to.
We're going to get her here so
Yeah.
I can see what
It's
the
like a
fuss is all about.
speaking class plus counseling.
Yeah.
Like I think I did better group therapy in that class
Serious.
than I did in all the years of actual counseling.
She is the best. She brings things out of you that you didn't even know were there, and just really helps with, becoming a better speaker and gaining more confidence in that department. But that's how we met.
Yes.
And I remember the first time that I met you and you were in class giving a speech. I think one of our little homework assignments was to come and prep like a 5-minute speech. And I think it was something you whipped up on your way here in your head in 5 minutes. And she just delivered this amazing story. And it had a lot to do with, I remember you talking about, your strength and, being a strong woman and in the way that you looked versus the way that you felt inside. I remember that being a part of what you talked about. And do you remember that?
Yes.
Do you remember that speech?
Yes.
And I just remember, and I'll let you talk about that, but I remembered the way I felt receiving it and thinking you were such a strong, inspiring woman. And I was like, wow, I'm in awe of her and I want to get to know her better because I just want to know amazing people. And that's the way I felt when I first met you.
Thank you.
So you're welcome.
That's a super nice compliment. And, it's funny because a group dynamic, you never know how it's going to be received. And especially sometimes I like to fly under the radar and not tell people what I do. Mm-hmm. But I knew that wasn't going to last very long in that course because all of the work that we do to keep our fronts up, right, our different masks, Amy and that course in particular had a way of tearing them right down. And I was thinking about strength driving over here and what that word meant. And I was thinking that decades ago, I used to think that being strong meant I couldn't be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. I used to think that they were opposites.
Yep. I think a lot of us have had that opinion, yeah.
But I think that now over the last couple of decades, I think that these words are symbiotic. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes to be vulnerable, you have to be strong. Mm-hmm. But I just started to kind of comprehend that in the last year or so.
Yeah, really, it's really digesting. And
Yes.
It takes a lot of courage to open up and let people know what's going on inside. That's very scary for a lot of us. I
It
think.
really is to really be seen.
Mm-hmm. And to put it all out there. And for us, this podcast alone, it's like, oh, now people are going to see us and they're going to hear us, and it's a little intimidating.
It is.
But that's what people, things have changed so much, and people are now, that's what they look for, even in business and personal relationships. They want that authenticity to say, not what facade are you putting on, but who are you really? And like in your line of work, our theme today is strength. And that can mean so many different things. And I feel like you have to use, just physical strength. You have to use mental strength, strength of character, judgment, like all of those things come into play. And that's a lot. And then you add the yoga on top of that, which to me, I don't know a lot of police people. I don't know if I can call you that,
Totally.
but police
Perfect.
people.
It's perfect.
I told you I'm awkward. So, but I don't know any other cops who do yoga. And so I'm already fascinated by your story without even knowing much about it. So,
I think two things to your point. The first is cops and yoga. It's interesting. On a physical level, we wear this 20, 30-pound gun belt around our waist for 10, 12 hours a day, 4 days a week. And, when I was riding patrol, sitting in a car with the apparatus on my lower back, leaned up against the car, you drive for 10 hours a day, right? And it just wreaks havoc on your posture, plus the bulletproof vest. It pulls on your shoulders, and it's physically awkward and uncomfortable. So I think that yoga mat gave me a sense of relief physically. Yeah. And then emotionally, I always used to joke that it was like my Prozac, right? Because I think the most important thing for us, any first responder, even nurses in emergency rooms or hospitals or doctors, anybody that sees daily trauma, I think where we usually fall short is in assimilation, right? Because you don't not see it, you don't not feel it, but how do you assimilate it? How do you digest it, literally digest it? Yeah. And it would be like if you ate food and didn't chew it. You just expect your stomach to do it. It doesn't work that way. And that yoga mat, 20 years ago when I found it, became my digestive process for the trauma, right?
That makes sense, yeah.
So I know it seems like they don't go together, but they really do.
You almost need the yoga to counteract the job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It brings you the balance. Or
Just,
it helps.
Right. And it reminds me to breathe.
Yeah.
And that's like learning how to shoot was very yogic, like learning how to inhale, find my sights, find my front sight on my target, exhale, allow the trigger to slowly be pulled. It was totally yoga.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Everything's focused around the breath. And if you can control your breathing, you can control so many other things that are happening around you.
100%.
Yeah.
The emotional reaction. And honestly, when we started teaching yoga in the jails a couple of years ago, we would tell the inmates that it's not that you won't have a reaction. It's that you're aware of your reaction before it happens. It's not unconscious, right? If somebody irritates you or gets in your face, you're able to process, take that moment to go, is it worth it? What is my reaction? Why do I feel this way before it comes flying out of my mouth?
We talked recently, we had an episode where we talked about responding versus reacting.
Yes.
And I was really tired that day. And I think for about 20 minutes, I was like, wait, is it respond or react? React or respond? Like, which one is the quick one? It was just like, I could not remember. I knew one of them was the reaction is the quick response. And then responding is where you really take the time to think it through, breathe, let it digest, let it marinate for a minute or an hour or a day, whatever you need before. Amanda's big on before you send an email reply to somebody,
sit on it.
Sit on it.
Me too. I've had to learn that the hard
Get
way.
the emotions out, but don't hit send.
Yes.
So clear it out and then go back to it. And
I think that's great advice.
Is this justified, or am I just acting emotionally? And I'm not a very emotional person, so I'm like the logical one. But I've seen that like people are very quick to.
Oh, we should be
throw it
friends.
out
I need
there.
logical friends.
Happy,
I'm not very
happy
logical.
to be the voice of reason whenever possible.
She's definitely a member of my council. Like if I'm like, hey girl,
Yes.
I need to know, I'm trying to check myself.
Yeah, give it to me straight.
Am I being emotional here,
Right.
or am I being level-headed? And quite often, most often, you're like, I think you're being very level-headed about this thought process. And I'm like, all right, good.
I can be a little direct, and sometimes
I
people
love that
don't
quality.
appreciate that.
I've learned to appreciate that quality the older you get, because it doesn't waste time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right?
See, you get me?
Yeah.
We're friends now.
It's efficient.
It's official.
Yeah.
Yes, way to be official and efficient and all good.
But it takes strength what you do, because
Thank
you run the risk of hurting somebody's feelings, right? Them taking it personal, or all of these other things where you're like, no, if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. And sometimes direct feedback, people don't get that.
Right.
And that's what I learned from Amy. Like Amy was really good at giving us direct feedback to where I was like, oh, okay, people don't want to hurt my feelings. Nobody's told me this before. Thank you for telling me. Like, it's like the booger in your nose.
People tell you what they think you want to hear.
Right.
Like they think, okay, instead of if you ask my opinion, I think for a lot of people, then they think, well, what does she want me to say? So I'm going to say this.
That's right.
I don't have that
Filter?
I don't. And it's like,
love
you
it.
ask me my opinion. This is how I feel about it. Doesn't mean you have to listen, but sometimes it catches people off. Most of the time, I think they appreciate it because everyone else is feeding into what they think they want. And
I think that's a powerful leader quality.
I'm going to take it. See?
I love it. Well, speaking of strengths, because I know that's one of our big theme of the day. What if we all talk about strengths that we feel we have? Like, what are some of your strengths, Sasha? Like, what, as far as it could be physical, it could be inner strength, it could be emotional strength. I know you've already touched on some, but what do you think?
I think probably my biggest strength is I'm very disciplined in every section of my life, which sometimes equates to the fact that I should have more fun. Like I
know about that.
So it's a strange balance. And for instance, like if we go out to dinner on a Friday night, like I'm very mindful that I can't have too much fun. I can't stay up too much late because I have to be at the gym at 7, which means I have to get up at 6:30 and it's my routine.
Yeah.
And I'm out of sorts if my routine is messed up. But at the same time, the discipline in the long run can equate to being very powerful.
Yeah.
But I have to be careful because it can be borderline OCD.
Yeah. But that's good though. But discipline's really important. And that's a huge strength. I was talking with Amanda about this earlier before we started. And I said, a couple of strengths that I feel that I possess are, I love building community. And I love helping other people find their strengths.
That's great.
So it really makes me feel good to, build those kinds of relationships with people where they feel really open with me, and I'm able to help them really look at themselves and with fresh eyes and from their hearts. I think a lot of people tend to be really hard on themselves, and I like to counteract that.
Do you think some of the trauma you've been through in your life gave you that soft ability? Because you have like the softest heart.
Aw, thank
and
you.
I don't know if you remember me saying that to you in speech class one time, that I could sense something about you, that sadness. Maybe it was just that day, but I could feel there was something inside of you. And then when I got to hear your story, I was like, oh, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand childhood trauma.
Yeah, and maybe so, because and a lot of people don't know that about me, and we shared quite openly in our class. And it was when I was a very young girl, my mom passed away very unexpectedly, and she died in her sleep. And it was, just a really big thing in my whole life. It was waking up one day and not having my mom there, and what that did to our family. And thankfully I have a really close-knit family. I call them my big fat Croatian family. I have a ton of people who stepped in and helped me. But yeah, I think that one of the reasons I'm as happy as I am today, and joyful and loving and giving in my life is because I think early on in my life, there was a lot of hurt around me and a lot of people coming together to try to protect and love and give me a lot of things that I needed. And I'm really fortunate and thankful that I had all of that. And
Such a blessing.
it is such a blessing. And I think as I've gotten older over the years, I know that happiness is a choice and it's a mindset and it's a decision you can make. And I want to live like fully. And I always feel like my mom didn't get her shot. She didn't get her chance to do the things she wanted to do. So it's like, I want to get it right, not only for me, but for her too. It's like I honor her in the way that I live and love my life and appreciate it with so much gratitude because I just want to make sure that I just really get that chance to fully enjoy it with being as present as I can.
It's so huge.
But thanks.
It's funny because when you told your story, you were the age of my twins, essentially, when it happened. And I was thinking like, you can't help but feel viscerally
Right.
that loss. And it's funny because they're at about that age, between like 5 and 7, they become aware of death.
Yeah.
They become aware of loss.
Right.
And so they're always asking me, and it's so funny because it's not funny, but it's an interesting look at parenthood that two things happened this year. One, in kindergarten, they had a friend in kindergarten whose parents got divorced. And so it was very traumatic for all, because, the poor kid came to school traumatized. Oh, I got to live with mom this week and dad next week, and mom and dad are fighting. And so the girls came home, are you and dad getting divorced? I'm like, do you know something I don't know? Right. And so they talk about it. Now all three of them, anytime that my husband and I have a conversation, they're like, are you fighting? Are you getting divorced? No, we're not getting divorced,
But it's like, they don't know. They don't have that gauge that they don't understand. It's this thing that someone had happen at school. So
and it's their trauma too. Like I think at that age, you're so open that you feel openly other people's traumas, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, well, especially now, and it's interesting listening to both of you talk about this because, my aunt passed away of cancer when I was 7 or 8, and our whole family split apart. Like yours came together, mine didn't know how to handle it.
Why was she the glue of your family?
I'm not sure. There's very much a closeness. My mom and her were very close, and it was so much that's why we're in Las Vegas, is because Pikes Peak, the mountain that was in our backyard in Colorado, the aunt who passed away would say every morning, "Good morning, Pikes Peak." There were just so many reminders that my mom and her other sister, like they couldn't be there every day. And I think a lot of my independence kind of stemmed from that. And that, I think I probably would have been pretty much on my own anyway, but it was, they were dealing with something much bigger than my 7 or 8-year-old brain could really even comprehend. I understood that, she was gone and all of that, but it didn't, again, maybe the lack of emotions in me, it was more logical and going forward, and they kind of had to deal with the emotions and I just had to take care of me. But it's just interesting how similar, and like when my parents got divorced, I don't recall it affecting me at all.
How old were you?
7, I think. I mean, all of this happened very quickly. And then my grandma's husband passed away like right after that. So it was a lot of stuff. And I think maybe I've blocked a little bit of it out, but it's, I remember the conversation, that my brother and I getting sat down and my parents were getting divorced, and it's like, oh, okay, can we go back to doing what we were going to do? And it just really was never a big deal. But some people, that is a defining moment in their lives.
Yes.
So it's so much about who we are, just,
how we're all wired.
Yeah.
Because we all receive and deal with things in such different ways. But that is interesting. But it goes along with how you're wired. Honestly, you are just, you're super logical, and I can see where you were like, okay, I got it. It's like,
and again, that we talked in one of our last episodes about that. That's often perceived as I don't care, or, I'm just maybe a little cold or distant, but it's just me. I process things. I'm very much like there's a little robot in the back of my head that's computing things.
Yeah.
And that's just how, I deal by moving on. It's kind of, okay, this thing happened. All I can do is move forward.
You would seriously be such a good police officer. You have all of the makings. She's logical. She can process, assimilate. She tells people directly. Seriously, by the way, we're hiring.
Yeah. I don't know if I could handle all the gear. I've seen my friend who's a cop, like every time if I meet him on his lunch break, there's so much stuff, and I've got bad shoulders anyway.
It's weird, but you kind of get used to it.
Okay. Well,
and think about it like this. It's kind of like a 10-hour workout. Like you're carrying this stuff around for 10 hours. So
yeah, but then you have to deal with all that darkness. And that, I'm actually curious because obviously people watch a lot of TV, and there's cops are portrayed in a certain way, whether it's, fiction or, news or whatever else. Like, how do you deal with the misconceptions that people have about police officers, and maybe especially as a female police officer? I don't know. I don't really know what you have to deal with, but how do you handle all of that?
That's probably a bigger question than you can even imagine because, well, two things. Number one is I'm so proud of this police department, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, because we've been very forward thinking in a lot of categories. And a little over a decade ago, they started a program on the west side called Safe Village. And Safe Village was in a lower economically situated environment with a lot of government subsidized housing. And what we realized was we can't do it alone, and we can't arrest our way out of problems. So we needed to go into a community that felt disconnected, divergent, alone, isolated from the police. Because when you have that, it creates hatred, right? And oftentimes, hatred can turn into radicalization of hatred, not just religious radicalization, any kind of anti-government, anti-establishment. So these officers and the captain at the time that started it over in Bolden Area Command was so smart in understanding that if we got the pastors and the religious leaders in these neighborhoods to partner with us, the community would start to see us different. And if we showed up in their space and went to their events, right, we call it outreach, then they would start to see us in a different light. Because if the only time they see us is when we're putting handcuffs on their mother, father, brother, sister, then of course we're the bad guy. I would see us that way too.
Sure.
Right? And in some places, the ratio of people being arrested is higher than others. And so, of course, they had a negative perception. So that was our start in community, what we call community policing. And then that has grown and grown and grown. And when we had Ferguson happen in our country, I'm really proud to say that we didn't see that here.
Right.
And we didn't see it here because we had put all the work in ahead of time of earning their trust and going, listen, hold on. We're not perfect. We don't have it all figured out. And as a matter of fact, it was around that time that we brought in the Department of Justice and said, hey, listen, instead of running the risk of going under a consent decree, which was happening around the country because of officer-involved shootings and use of forces, we want you to come in and put us through the reform process. And they did, and we had 73 reforms that we have gone through. We've put our officers through bias-based police training. How do you recognize your biases? How do you... And then we built a full unit that deals with nothing but outreach in communities that feel alone or isolated, the Muslim community, the Jewish community, the LGBTQ community. As a matter of fact, Melissa got to meet one of the heads of the LGBT community, the trans community specifically, when she was at my office the other day, because if we don't teach our cops who these people are, or first responders, who these people are, and what they need or want or how they feel, then we'll always show up and feel awkward, right? And sometimes it's not intentional. Sometimes you fear or you don't know how to interact with what you don't understand.
Right.
So this is my long-winded answer telling you that how we deal with what the negativity is, we've really been proactive in addressing it on a grassroots level. But we have an incredible social media program that runs throughout the agency. And it's a small piece, but every day our PI, our Public Information Office, is pushing out positive stories, catching us doing something right. Right.
You give me goosebumps just talking about this.
I know.
Stuff.
Yeah,
it's so great.
And Nina Radetich that works with Make-A-Wish, and I love her because when I went through the police academy 20 years ago, she went through the police academy right after me. And at the time, she was one of the leading reporters here in Las Vegas. And 3 weeks into the academy, her and I had a conversation about it. She said it changed the way I look at policing.
Yeah.
Like she understood.
Mm-hmm.
And so little things like that have really shifted the dynamics for us locally.
Right.
Right? It's not like that in every city.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to just take a moment and be grateful for what we have here.
Well,
And for the great community we have.
We do have a really great community.
You were saying
here.
that is one of your pillars of strength is community.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of how.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, man, I could listen to you talk all day.
I know.
I love it.
Well, you happen to hit one of my soft spots.
No,
Right.
it's a beautiful thing. One of the things too that I wanted to ask you, Amanda
Oh.
McEwen, was what do you feel are some of your strengths?
Thought I was going to get out of that
No,
one.
I didn't
thought
forget.
I'm distracted enough.
I did not
No,
forget.
it is my independence. It's,
Yeah.
that and determination,
Mm.
because I will find a way. Whatever it is that I want to accomplish, I'll find a way. And it's, I've been like that my entire life. I've always felt, you know what, I don't know, I deserve the things that I want. And I know that I have to do a lot of hard work to get
right.
there, but I'm willing to put in the work. Like, it's an investment in myself. I owe it to me. And that's that big strength in being the introvert and being the loner and spending a lot of time alone. You get to know really well who I am, what's going to make me happy, the goals and what's going to support who I am. And I see a lot of people, that's what they struggle with. They look to other people
External.
to provide them with the things that they need. And I personally don't think that's possible. I don't think anybody else can make you complete or happy or any of those things, because that all comes from within. Now, not to say that, like Melissa has her husband of 20 years, not to say he's not a perfect counterpart.
Sure.
It makes your life better, but you're responsible for your own happiness.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
your own feelings.
It is up to the individual to find their their purpose, their strength, their who they are, and embrace all that in your happiness. You can't expect someone else to provide that to you. But I mean, I feel very fortunate that I have a good partner in my life, but it's up to me, it's up to you. It's up to all of us to find our own self.
Because that's a big weight to put on somebody to say, hey, you're in charge of my happiness.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's why a lot of relationships don't work
I think
out,
so,
because
too.
there's unnecessary expectation, unrealistic expectation that, this piece of me is missing or it's broken or whatever it is.
Yes.
I need
Fix
somebody
it.
else to heal it. And
Yeah.
it's like only you can do that. And sometimes, for people to spend time alone, like it's there's people who won't go out to eat by themselves or won't go see a movie. And, like I jumped and went to Europe for 3 weeks by myself in a bunch of countries I didn't speak the language. And part of that was, if I sit around and wait for somebody to be able to do this with, most of my friends don't have the money or the time or the desire to travel. So I could sit around and wait. Or if this is something I want to do, I'm just going to go do it. And, that I thought it was great. Like traveling by myself.
I
is
love
so-
traveling alone.
because you get to do whatever you want.
That's right.
Eat whatever you want. If you're on some kind of plan and you see this other thing that you want to do, you don't have to ask somebody else if it's okay. And I loved it. There's one day just in Barcelona, I just hopped on one of those bus tours and I got to pick when I jumped on and off, and it was great.
That's my city.
In Barcelona?
Yeah, I want to retire there and teach
it's-
yoga on the beach.
I think that's a great plan.
That's my plan.
I'm going to Barcelona for the first time.
Do you need help carrying your
Right? Would you girls like to come along and show me which bus to hop on? And we're
Isn't that
going
a
for
big anniversary trip.
it's our
though? Like, I don't-
20th wedding anniversary. So
Oh,
we're starting.
congratulations.
Thank you. We're going to start in Barcelona, and we're going on a 13-day Mediterranean cruise. So
Do you end up in Istanbul?
we end up in Venice, I think.
In Venice.
Yeah,
Nice.
and then we're gonna
food.
hop across the water and go to Croatia and visit my family. So I still have family over there.
Hey, I have a really good connection there. My girlfriend runs a wine tour in Croatia. So
All
don't wanna miss
right,
that.
all right.
You
We'll
just
check
get on
it
a boat
out.
and drink wine for 2 days.
I can. I'll have 2 sips and be like, everyone
Be
teases
good.
me I'm such a lightweight. It's like if I drink like 1 glass of wine, I'm like, whoopee. So I'll be a cheap date.
Perfect. But the food in Italy too. I think I
ready.
ate gelato like every meal, sometimes twice.
So you did the Eat, Love, Pray run.
Kind of without the praying or the loving. I pretty much just did the eat part.
You know what? I think that's the best way to
all
go
about
on
it.
vacation.
I want to eat some gnocchi and I'm going to get my pasta in.
Oh, yeah.
So right now I'm doing this low carb situation.
Oh, it's so brutal.
it's so brutal. Speaking of, I wanted to say one thing I've really noticed about myself, and you girls chime in on your opinion on this, is when I am feeling very physically strong, I feel so much more mentally strong and acute. And they're synonymous. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, if I'm really feeling strong here, then I want to take better care of my body. It's just this whole full circle thing. Or if I start physically just working out more, being more disciplined, with what I'm eating and what I'm doing, I feel so much more, clear and, more confident in my decision making and feel like I can get so much more done. And anyway, it's just a little observation.
No, I think you hit the endorphin nail on the head, right?
Yeah, right there.
It's that cycle of, and I think it's empowering, right? You feel strong, you get your workout in. And we were talking before we started about hot yoga because as much as
I probably made a face just then.
Yeah.
Hot yoga is not for me. But
well, it's a strange thing because you kind of feel wrung out a little bit. So I feel a little bit like it's almost like Catholic confession for my body. Like I confess and leave everything on the yoga mat.
You get everything dirty out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I first started teaching yoga like 20 years ago, I used to teach a class called Detox to Retox. And it was a Saturday mid-afternoon class. And we used to just get sweaty for 2 hours. And then people would be like, all right, let's go to happy hour. And it's really not very yogic, but it just kind of turned into that.
But you earn it. You work out and then you earn the fun.
Yeah, that's good.
It's funny because I do Pilates for pain management. And it's part of my routine that I physically need it, to keep my pain in order. But thanks to that, I do have a very strong core.
Do you cuss at that reformer ever?
I don't.
That reformer is intense.
It is. And it's, after years of searching, it's the one exercise I found that with all my injuries that I can do it. But, I started going to this different place and working with different instructors, and they're much more physically intense than where I used to go.
It's raised the bar.
But it is the mental strength. And, because I feel the difference in changing up these classes, and when I feel that physical strength, or even if it's my shoulders aren't cooperating or my knees are not happy today, I always show up and I do what I can. And, if I feel headachy, I go, and people are always like, oh, well, you should just stay home. I'm like, no, because a lot of times that pushes through the headache.
That's right.
If I'm stressed because I've got a lot of work going on, I will stop and go to a class. And where I think the traditional thinking is like, but how do you have time to stop and do that? Because when I come back, the mental clarity, like it's a reinvigorating. It's invigorating.
It's like a reboot.
It is.
For your brain and your body.
And that's why, I'm so regimented about it. And like my clients know, my office hours, my general hours, usually end at 4:00 during the week because I go to a 4:30 Pilates class on Tuesday and Thursday. Fridays, I just go in the middle of the day at noon so I can come here and record afterwards. But that routine, even though it's for physical strength, it really helps with the mental part of it too. Like it's 1 hour that is just for me. I'm not thinking about clients or family or anything else that's going on. And I feel good. It's an accomplishment.
Yes.
Because my whole life of dealing with all these injuries and can't do this and can't do that. And it's like I don't believe in can't at all. So it's like I will show you. And that's what I do. So even if it's, this little tiny accomplishment for me, I always feel better when I leave than when I got there. Even if I, headachy or whatever it is, I always feel better.
Yeah. And did you hear what she said, her opening line? She said, I always show up.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you live your life, though. I mean, I think that's truly exemplary of how you live. It sounds like you show up for yourself.
I do.
And according to Melissa, it sounds like you show up for your friends when they need you. And what a great characteristic.
Yeah,
you.
she's very
It's really-
strong.
that's
Those are
very
some great
powerful.
strengths.
I like my new friend here. She
Yeah.
makes me feel
Oh,
good.
Sasha's the best.
I mean,
She is-
obviously, I said you can't make me feel a certain way, but I do feel
No.
very good sitting next to you and
No.
listening to you.
Those
So
strong
thank you.
women. I mean, we have to be in this together because there's enough people against us,
Yeah.
Yes.
right, in the world that we
Yeah.
gotta find the
It's-
glue where we can.
Yeah, find the glue where we can, and we just lift each other up, you know?
Is that an issue in your line of work? The because
talk
I
about
know
that.
that men, not all men, it's very, sometimes there
Wow.
is an intimidation factor when there's a woman in power. Sometimes, I mean, it could be for a variety of reasons, but I have to imagine female police captain comes with a certain heaviness, or I don't even know the right word for what that is, but
Such an interesting balance because, well, on the intimidation side, I'm lucky that I have a husband that is not intimidated, that is incredibly supportive. He was in special forces in the Navy, and then he did naval intelligence for a long time. And he is an entrepreneur and runs his own business. And so he really understands the grind, but he also understands the paramilitary, macho, male-dominated environment.
Sure.
So that helps because he's always been very supportive of, being surrounded by men where that could be, I can imagine, intimidating to another man that doesn't work there. But the other part of it is, I think it's 20 years into this career, right? I mean, I've been through a lot of trials and tribulations and failed epically at many of them, had lots of, incidents and different things where I hope by this point in my career, I've proved myself, right? Tactically, leadership wise, but every day, you're only as good as what you did a few minutes ago. So I'm blessed in this moment, in this space in my career. I'm blessed to have a leadership team around me that is pro-women, supportive. And I don't know if this is accurate, but I feel like they don't look at me any different.
oh, that's the best way.
But I don't know if that's
Yeah.
true. It's just that's how it feels.
Yep.
So I don't, and honestly, a lot of times I forget that I show up in this shell. And we do wear wool and polyester every day.
Right.
So it does take away a lot of the femininity.
You're not like on the TV shows when they're, in the fitted things and running in heels,
Yes.
chasing after the bad guy.
We are not that cool.
You're not wearing a tank top
Even
and
in
heels.
Vegas.
No.
Even in
No.
Vegas, you're
No.
wearing the standard uniform.
Yes. And even if I do wear a suit to work for some reason, I wear a button-up shirt with, a camisole underneath. I'm very conservative about it because it's a bi-directional thing, right? I don't want to make someone else feel awkward.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have a position of respect that I need to show up. And I'm trying to teach the women coming up, now through the ranks. I'm trying to be a good example for them.
Yeah.
Because we're judged, as cops, we judge people instantly. The second we see you, we look you from head to toe and we're making decisions about you. Can I outrun you? Can I fight you? And if I can I win? Are you smart? Are you a felon? Are you good, bad?
Yeah.
We're sizing you up.
Yeah.
And not just to the people we interact with, to each other, right? So the second we're with someone else, we're like, almost unconsciously.
Right.
It's just what we do.
Yeah.
So how do we, I think we have to take a step back and we have to remember we're all in it together. There's enough people out there against the police
Right.
that we have to remember that and connect with one another, which is not always the easiest. But I feel like we have a very good community within our organization.
Yeah. And one of the things, I love everything you're saying. And I was just thinking, you triggered a couple of thoughts as you were talking about, to remember that officers are fathers,
Yes.
Mothers,
Yes.
brothers. And I was really touched that you invited me to come and speak to, at your meeting the other day, leadership meeting,
Yes.
and share, from my point of view, interactions I've had with officers. And there have been times that they've been, so serious and, I'm the way I had felt, other times I've been pulled over in Pinky the Love Bug. She goes fast,
We loved that story, by the way. She tells my guys, I drive a pink Beetle with eyelashes. And they're like all confused. Wait, the Beetle has eyelashes? Yeah. Or she has eyelashes.
And I was talking about how I was pulled over and how the second the officer approached my vehicle, my voice went up really high. I was like, hello. And I was talking about vocal tells and about how when you feel, unsure or vulnerable or exposed, really,
Yes.
your voice will, it'll pitch up. And I, as I was doing it, I was like, Melissa Mose, you sound so guilty. You were speeding. Unfortunately, this officer that I was interacting with was just an absolute love. I mean, he was so down to earth. And, and before I drove away at the end of our exchange, he's like, what did we learn today? And I said, we learned that Pinky is not only a very cute little car, but she goes very fast. And I said, and she'll slow down.
I'm so happy to hear a positive story. Like that's always, because the only stories I ever hear at cocktail parties or at the gym is, oh my gosh, I got pulled over as person.
Horror stories or people, I think sometimes too, they just over, what's the word I'm looking for? Just exaggerate in good and bad ways, but
they play the victim right there. It's like you broke the rules. Like you were in the wrong. It's not the cop's fault. You're trying to protect the rest of us. Now again, because I'm very boring. Like I don't get speed. I've gotten one speeding ticket my entire life, and it was between Vegas and California in that stretch that like there's nothing.
Right.
But there was somebody waiting. But that was my fault. Like, I was like in my early 20s. I don't know if I was 20 yet, but that's the only time I ever got a ticket. But, the people that get angry that they got the ticket, it's like, but you got the ticket because you broke the rules. Like, it's not.
There you go, adding common sense to it again.
She's really good like that. She's so good like that.
But can you imagine being a police officer and pulling over the blonde bombshell? I mean, you walk up to Pinky.
Oh, gosh. You're calling me a blonde
yes.
bombshell?
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Seriously. We do not pull
you.
over people that look like you very often.
Wow. Well,
You are a
thank
blonde
you.
bombshell.
Man, I've never been called that before.
Really?
I really am thankful.
Oh, my goodness.
Man, hold on. Let me just take it. Let me receive it. Thank you.
Seriously.
Sasha is very good for the ego building for the rest of
I
us.
might be slightly smitten on blondes.
Wow.
It's a true story.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And it's okay. My husband knows.
Well,
it's fine.
Hey.
He knows that the reason I'm a police officer today was the blonde bombshell, Larry Wilcox in Chips.
Yes.
Back in the 70s.
Yes.
And everybody's like, oh, you liked Poncherello. I'm like, no, I'm from Albuquerque. Everybody looked like that.
Yeah.
John Baker, though, we didn't have boys like that.
Wow. And I was going to ask you what drew you to becoming, a
Chips,
police officer.
all the way.
All the way, baby.
And
Chips.
everybody, listen, can you hear that theme song in your head right now?
Yes.
Right? Dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
Yes.
I can.
And I feel sad because this generation, like the new cops that come into my briefing room, I'll go to make a funny joke about chips or something, and they're like, who? You're going to eat a chip?
It's so
I'm like,
sad.
never mind.
A lot of our references on the podcast are 80s and 90s references.
Yes.
We get that, but a lot
Right.
of the younger ones, they don't.
Yeah.
You know, you want to hear something, you want to hear what dates me? The other day I was talking about use of force issues in a briefing room, and I was talking about O.J. Simpson, the great chase, Oh,
yeah.
I don't know if you saw in the news this chase in
yeah.
California recently with the RV with the dogs in it. Did you see
No, I
this?
did not.
Oh, this woman stole an RV and crushed it. You have to Google it. And she had 2 dogs in it, and she crushed the whole front of it, ripped off the side panels. The dogs jumped out at like 60 miles an hour.
Oh.
It's crazy. And so I was talking to them in the brief room about safe driving. We were talking about OJ, and one of the kids was like, what happened to OJ?
No.
And
Oh, no.
I mean, albeit it was 6:30 in the morning because they should brief it. It was like, oh my goodness. I said, get with your FTO, your field training officer, and have him explain the O.J. Simpson saga because
you need to understand the reference.
But what year was OJ?
When was that? Was it in the 90s? It was
in the
late
90s.
90s.
But I would feel like
early mid-90s, I think.
Was it?
But there was just an FX show that like Brian Murphy produced, I think, that I thought would have made it more current because they brought it back.
So let's just say conservatively 20 years ago.
Yeah.
95.
95, okay.
So more than 20. So just think about these kids are 21. So it happened before they were, and so they have no concept.
I don't really know how I don't like the way that makes me feel.
Trust me, I felt old instantly in that moment. I was like, I'm just going to sit down now.
Man.
I have to come up with more current references.
We're working on our references, but we don't, we like our references from the 80s and 90s.
Right?
That's the time that shaped us.
New Kids on the Block is coming in concert this weekend.
I have a friend that's going. She actually she sent me a text message and she's like, I'm sparing you because she makes me go to a lot of concerts and usually I want to go. She's like, I spared you from this one. And then she told me the whole lineup.
Like Salt and Pepper.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think
It's
Debbie
back.
Gibson or one of those.
Is Debbie Gibson going to be there?
Oh, sorry, Deborah Gibson now.
Deborah.
But
I need to
back
find
then
out
she
about
was
where is
Debbie.
this concert happening?
Down on the strip somewhere, but it's really our youth encapsulated in one
I need to go to this.
show.
I just saw about a year ago, I saw Rick Astley in concert.
No.
He was my major crush when I was in like 7th grade. And he played at the Pearl at the Palms. And
How fun.
I had never been happier. I mean, it was the first concert that I ever went to as a kid. And now I'm like, all I keep hearing in my head is, whoa,
Yes.
hanging tough.
Yes.
When you
but maybe
said
this
New
is our
Kids,
strength. Maybe this is our strength in that owning.
Yes.
We're in this space in our life with all this musical wisdom.
Yes.
Musical wisdom.
Musical
I'm
wisdom.
all about that.
And we are now able to share all of this wisdom. Maybe that's our strength.
Speaking of sharing wisdom, I do want to ask you a really important question.
All right, I'm ready.
How do you feel about garden gnomes?
Oh, well, I've had some bizarre occurrences with them at work lately.
Oh, really? And we thought this was going to be a random question.
No,
but
I thought did I tell this story in class?
Oh, do you like how we both just sat up and
you
like
really
faced-
don't? I didn't tell this story?
No.
Oh my goodness. This is honest to God, true story. So a couple days ago at work, well, now a couple weeks ago, an off-duty police officer, he lives in this neighborhood in Northwest. He came out because he is in a unit that works on calls. You know, he gets, I was going to say paged. That really dates me. They get called to come out.
His beeper.
They used to carry them. But he got called to go to work and he walked out into his front yard and it was very early in the morning, like 5 in the morning. And this homeless woman, he has 2 garden gnomes in his front yard. And this homeless woman was making out with the garden gnome. Like holding the garden gnome, kissing it, rubbing it. And he was like, excuse me, what are you doing? And she just kind of looked at him and she continued to embrace his gnome. And he told his wife, he said, listen, I'm getting ready to be called out. Can you please call 311 and have somebody come address this because they don't want us getting involved off duty. And he was getting called out to a very dynamic situation. And so some of my guys, well, he was going on a barricade. And so some of my guys came that were working patrol and they were like, yeah, she was suffering from some mental illness. Yeah. And so they ended up taking her to a facility and getting her help. But that's my garden gnome story.
Well, I had no idea that you had a garden gnome story. I have one other really fun question.
Okay.
All right, here it comes. You've been given an elephant. You can't give it away or sell it. What would you do with the elephant?
So it's funny because elephants are my all-time favorite animal. And remind me to show you, I have a beautiful elephant tattoo. So I've been to India 4 times. And in India, they adorn them with flowers and paint. And they are, representative of Ganesh. And so Ganesh is very special to me.
Oh.
Yes.
And I would keep him. I would find a way to give him exactly what he needs. I would build a habitat-like space for him and adorn him like the incredibly wise soul, because guaranteed he's reincarnated from some wise soul. Guaranteed. Yeah. And I saw them in Africa. We were in Africa last year teaching community policing in Botswana, and we did what do you call them? We went out and did the wildlife.
Like a safari.
Safari, thank you. Yeah. I was thinking sabbatical. But we did the safari, and these elephants, they're mesmerizing.
Yeah.
They're mesmerizing.
And they are the only animal that cannot jump.
I can see that. Yeah. That might be a good thing.
It was a weird random fact I found the other day. I was sending out a really fun e-blast to our students. And I was like, fact, all about voiceover. And I was like, fact, elephants are the only animal which cannot jump. And I was
That
like,
is a
"Interesting."
phenomenal fact. I'm going to add that to
So,
my repertoire.
It's good for you to know.
Thank you.
And I'm really pleased that you were able to just like whip out a garden gnome story and an amazing answer about the elephants.
And she wasn't even caught off guard by it.
No,
You know, that was kind
it
of the
seemed like a natural question.
Well, I think that comes from parenthood because they ask me unbelievable questions. And from having, these police officers that they will call and ask you things that you couldn't believe once you get in a position of leadership.
Yep.
So you have to be ready because all of a sudden you become like the oracle when really the day before you were no different than them. And then you take a test and you get promoted and you're still the same person, but they think that you have magically been infused with all this wisdom.
Oh, I wish we could talk to you for hours, but we're getting a sign that our time has come to an end, and that kind of makes me sad.
I'm so grateful that I got to
you.
spend some time with you,
Oh, thanks.
amazing female goddesses,
Oh.
warriors.
Thank you for
you're gonna have to
that.
come back every week. I think you're just our
Captain.
third host now. And
Or we could just take out and, go have delectable treats, tea parties, or
We like
all of
delectable
those
treats.
things.
And
Yes.
since we all work out, we can just, we'll do it. What was it? Detox?
detox to retox.
Yeah, detox to retox. We can do that.
Yes.
And I just want to say that it has been an absolute pleasure having you on our show. And Captain. And
Just Sasha.
I love it, Captain Sasha, our friend, and a really big inspiration to our whole community. So thank you.
I'm honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the Womanpreneur podcast. Until next time, you've got this.